In this video, we're going to show you exactly what to look for when viewing a property like this. Property Wealth System is a collective of active investors out there in the market, helping other people to improve their financial futures by investing in property safely.
Today we're looking at this property has a number of potential end uses. Could be a flat conversions, could be retained as an HMO, could also be social housing as an option.
So before we go inside and look at this big lump of a building, remember to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell.
So Nick, when we're in a property of this size, what are we looking out for?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'm looking for, Rick, is to think about what is going to be the end use of this particular property. And this type of building, it's a nice kind of old Victorian, Edwardian building, nice proportions, nice high ceilings, lots and lots of options that we can do with this. And this again is going to be a conversion. So we're converting this into what we would call higher and better use. So what can we do with this building that's going to make it valuable in today's market?
Yeah, this is, I mean, I've got the plans here and you can see it's one of the biggest semi-detached properties I've ever been into, knocked into one. And as you've mentioned there, it's about finding, a better use for this property because, clearly as an HMO, when we look around and see this in a bit more detail, it's very, very dated. And I would also be a little bit concerned about having 18 bedrooms of an HMO, perhaps in this particular location.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's quite a big, that's a whole different ball game to, the kind of 6-7 bedroom HMOs that most of us do. Going to something like 18 rooms is a completely different beast.
Well, Nick, I've been in here a couple of days ago. It's the first time really seeing it in daylight. So let's start down here,
okay.
And I can sort of show you what I've seen so far. So remember, this is being used as its most recent use class was care home.
Yeah.
Then it was being used to house care home workers. So people, I think, overseas were coming here and they needed somewhere to stay because they were working in the local care homes, were staying here. So you can see, my take on this is it's been a very, let's use what we've got. These are the rooms, this was a kitchen, that's a bathroom, and we'll just stick with that layout. It's not really been converted to any great spec. There are some positives. There is double glazing throughout. So
that's a big job straight away. If you're going to keep the shell of the building, you don't have to do.
But it's internally that it really lets itself down. It's just very
It's very dated, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very dated. It needs a full renovation, doesn't it?
Let's go and see the rest of this property then.
But in terms of a very rough calculation, what I'm going to do is look at the net floor space. I'm going to take off around 15% of that floor space, and that's going to cover you for your corridors, staircases, etc. And then what you're left with, essentially, what a 1 or a 2 bed flat in the market, averagely between 45 and 60 square meters.
Correct, yeah.
So if you take an average of say 55 square meters, you divide what's left by that, and that tells you roughly how many flats you can get into the floor space.
Let's go and take a look at some of the bedrooms at the front. So here we are in a second one of the bedrooms. So you can see when we're talking about large square rooms, massive bay window, which thankfully has been double glazed. I think if the glazing was rotten in here, I'd be like, wow, no, there's, tens and tens of £1,000s.
Yeah, tens of £1,000s in glazing.
One thing I'm definitely not keeping is what are your thoughts on the carpet?
Well, I like the carpet, Rick, especially if this was going to be a student HMO, then it's going to cover the vomit stains quite nicely, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. This would cover all sorts of embarrassments, I think.
Okay, so here we see some staining from some water ingress somewhere in the building. So it looks historic, but what that says to me is that there is water coming in from somewhere. Now, being as this is in kind of the middle of the building, that could be coming from the roof and finding its way down, bearing in mind we're on ground floor level. So that needs a little bit of investigation as to see where that came. It could also have been a bathroom upstairs.
Could be a bathroom, could be a bathroom, could be a radiator. There's Arctics on the ceiling. That's obviously, could need to check that for signs of asbestos given the age of the decor in here. But again, the real potential in this is the size and the scope of the rooms. So we're out on the first floor here, and this is kind of a little bit of a kind of area that it's a small outrigger that we've got with a bathroom here at the top of the stairs. And it does become a little, it's clearly not big enough to be a flat because it's sort of stuck out here. So it does, become a little bit of a how are we going to incorporate it with the other area. And as Nick and I both said, we can knock out walls, but again, remember we're looking at the width of some of this stuff. It does become you know, a little bit tricky. Let's go and take a look at the next floor up,
Yeah.
where it's a bit clearer.
So here we can clearly see that all the electrics have been surface mounted, which is a kind of a bit of a cheap way of doing it.
However, on the plus side, because we've got such high head height here, we could actually create a full ceiling.
Yeah.
So again, that's a really quick and easy way for us to think about how we can get waste electric services out of this by just actually reducing the head height. So on the left side of the property here, and we've got this staircase, and you can see actually there where they split the window. So one thing that we can think about here is actually this full staircase, Nick, can come completely out, and we can give over this space to, you know, one of the flats here, because we've got a staircase there and a staircase there. So finally, we've made it to the top of the building. We're here in the loft area. Thoughts?
Well, as usually the first thing I look for really is any signs of water ingress. I can't see any. There's maybe a little bit of an area maybe in that corner there, but certainly nothing current, and it has been raining quite a lot recently. So we've had a good look around this property, and it's a nice big building. There's lots of potential with it. Okay, so what we need to do is start thinking now about how the numbers are going to look. So we're going to do our rough calculations and see if it is actually even a potential deal. And this is not where we started. So Rick, I started with small £50,000 buy-to-lets in Scotland.
Yeah, buying flats, buy-to-lets, yeah, sort of 50, 60,000, and then moving up the food chain. But once you've done one flat conversion, can you do 2 or 3? Can you buy a small block and do 6? And this is kind of taking that on to the next level, you know, bringing in, you know, a bigger team of professionals to bring this one to life.
It's definitely not something that you could go out and do as your first deal, because in order to, you know, get something like this through planning, get it over the line, get it financed, you're going to need a really, really strong team around you, and you're going to need a bit of a track record to prove to your lenders.
I mean, looking at the floor plans here, having walked around, it's a really big and square property. You know, conservatively, 12 flats. If it's your first gig and you thought you could give this a try on your own, trying to get utilities in for 12 individual units would probably be enough to send the average person a little bit loopy. That's a real struggle. So, you know, aspire to these types of things, work up, understand the process. So let's try and break down this deal. So we've looked at the floor plan without getting an architect in there. This would comfortably break into 12 flats, really comfortably, but let's be conservative with our numbers. Looking at done up values of comparable flats and apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom in the area, we are looking at anywhere between 80 to perhaps 100. So let's take a midpoint on that, say 90,000?
Yeah, it sounds about right to me. I mean, there's more work that's going to need to go into this. So now's a time where, you know, this tends to be my kind of forte, I guess, would be going. This is where you probably lose a bit of interest, Rick. I'll go off and do the numbers in a bit more detail.
I'll have a little think about how I'm going to raise the money.
He'll dream board it, and it will come back. But yeah, absolutely important. You know, you have to go out and you have to look at what are other flats in the area selling for. What type of flats are they? You know, you're looking for the nearest kind of newest type of property to use as your comparable. And I would also go and have a little look at how quickly things are taken to sell, because that might just, you know, help me with my decision making on what to do with this building. Because if I see, for example, that in the area flats are taking a long time to sell at the moment, I may change, you know, the strategy. We might look at doing something else with it. But if we can see a good turnover of flats in the market going, then that gives us confidence that this is going to be a good deal.
One of the key mistakes I see amateurs making is basically trying to force a strategy on a property because the property is crying out to be flats. Now, let's say, for instance, we talk to professionals in the area and say, yeah, actually everyone's looking for 2-bedroom terrace houses and flats are just sticking on the market. That's going to tell us why would we sink our money into this to develop into something that's not in demand. Now, that doesn't mean this deal is dead in the water. Could it be cut into 2 separate HMOs and brought up to a higher standard? Could we potentially talk around the social care provision? Is there something else? I mean, it's far too big to be 2 family homes. Absolutely not going to happen. But we just need to make sure that we're starting with our strategy, what is in demand, and then looking at the property. Not, this is a big lump, let's turn it into flats and hope for the best. So, Nick, numbers being your side of things, hopefully you've got this one already worked out in your head.
Already done the maths, Rick, as you know. So let's think this through. So we've got 12 flats at an average value of around 90,000. So we're just shy of 1.1 million as a GDV. which is gross development value.
We've been given a guidance on this of somewhere between 350 and 400. So depending on where you are in the country, you might be looking at this and thinking, wow, you know, if you're in London, this is a lot of house, a lot of property for 400,000. But again, it's irrelevant because we need to understand what the end value is. You know, when we've converted it, what is that end value?
Okay, so you've got 350,000-ish to buy it, plus fees, plus stamp duty, etc. So let's call it 400,000. What's it going to cost to build this out, Rick?
Okay, so, you know, a rule of thumb is, you know, for a flat, let's say that we're doing this into 12 individual units, I would be using as a rule of thumb, you know, £25,000–30,000 for one flat. So
let's get the calculator out and do the maths.
So we've got, Nick,
okay,
12 flats.
So we've got 12 flats at 90,000. So we're just under 1.1 million. We're going to take off 400,000 for purchase and fees. Okay, so we're down at 680. Now we've got, let's say, what, 30,000 per flat?
Call it 30,000 a flat.
Okay, times 12, so that's 360,000 in terms of build costs, very roughly. Okay, so plus 400 to buy. So we're in for around 760. Okay, so with a sale price of around 1.1, that's leaving us with around about £340,000 in potential profit. So that's kind of the first rule of thumb, is on a very, very rough calculation, does it stack up? Is it a potential deal? So this is giving us around about a 30% profit margin, which for me ticks the boxes.
100%. Now, one of the things we need to make sure is there demand? Now, demand for buying or demand for renting? Really, really important thing here. There's no point building these to sell them if there's no demand to buy. If we're going to build them to rent them out, we need to obviously make sure that there are people that want to live in flats of 1 and 2 bedroom in this area. That means that we can retain this once it's converted and actually keep all of this for the cash flow.
Personally speaking, I do like the build to rent model. You see a lot of these things, the big developers are really moving into build to rent. So where there's a gap in the market is that the big developers aren't going to be interested in a building like this. It's too small for them and it's too big for the amateur investor. So that's where the professional investor can really step in. And this is exactly the kind of property that would fit that kind of small build to rent model.
If you imagine it's like picking up 12 buy-to-lets in one purchase, yeah, obviously the conversion is going to take a lot longer. Again, remember, this isn't your first deal and this is something you're going to build up to. But, you know, picking up something like this, you know, 12 buy-to-lets in one go, you know, Nick, you could do it yourself, I could do it myself. Maybe Nick and I could go into a joint venture where we could split the property down the middle. I own the left side, Nick has the right-hand side. We could develop them all out, sell one half, split the titles and keep this for cash flow. So there's lots and lots of options by doing that flat conversion. The reason I like flat conversions, I like to own the whole of the property and the roof on top. So I've got full control of that property and I'm not relying on other people, the leasehold, the freehold and so on and so forth.
Okay, also remember that wherever you are in the country, those build costs are going to be different. So where we are in Merseyside, we can do flats for around about that £30,000 per flat level. Now, if you're in other parts of the country, that figure is going to change. So do make sure that you are going out and getting the relevant information for your particular marketplace. But for us, in this area, those are the rough numbers. There's definitely profit in this. And I think we need to go and now look in a little bit more depth. So really, really interesting diversion here to come in and have a look at this property. Could be a really interesting deal, Rick.
We hope you've enjoyed this video, so please do comment.
And always remember to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell.